All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Touchdown Glass podcast. I am your host, Michael V. Jones, and here at the Touchdown Glass, we are keeping it 100% real. No crazy hot takes or agendas, just good old-fashioned football talk the way you like it. Well, guess what? It's playoff time, right? The playoffs, whether it's NFL or college football playoffs. So I wanted to wait I actually been itching to record all day, but I wanted to wait until after the Ohio State Texas game. So congratulations to the Buckeyes and congratulations to the Fighting Irish, all their fans. That is the national championship game. Wow, who had that on their bingo card? That is awesome. So yeah, you people fire Ryan Day. Uh, you know, jump off the bridge, please. Ridiculous. Good college football coaches don't grow on trees. Quit being butthurt that you lost to Michigan. You're in the national title game. Come on now. Good Lord. That's why I'm more of a pro guy. But hey, that's just me. All right. Before I jump into reviewing Week 18, it's snowing here in a lot of parts, um, on the East Coast. Obviously, there's the wildfires out west, so just want everybody to stay safe wherever they are, and thinking of you and your safety. So, all right, well, let's review Week 18. Kind of an interesting week, as there were some things that mattered, some games that mattered, and some that really didn't. Some had, huge impact on the draft. We're going to get into all that. So we did have some games on some Saturday games, and it started with the Baltimore Ravens beating the Cleveland Browns 35-10. So the Ravens go to 12-5. The Browns 3-14. Lamar Jackson 16-32, 217 yards, 2 touchdowns, 9 carries for 63 yards. Derrick Henry 20 carries, 138 yards, 2 touchdowns, and Rashad Bateman 5 catches, 76 yards, and a touchdown. Bailey Zappi was the starting quarterback for the Browns, 16-31, 170 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Deontay Foreman only 27 yards on 10 carries, and Jerry Jeudy 6 grabs for 63 yards. So really, this was just pure Baltimore Raven dominance, outgaining Cleveland offensively, 437 yards to the Browns, 230. Um, yeah, so the Browns, a lot going on with them. I'm not going to get into the Deshaun Watson in the news, so I'll bring it up now. He has torn another Achilles during rehab. So, Myles Garrett, is this kind of the end for him in Cleveland? Does he, get traded, and does this team rebuild? They're really cap strung with this Deshaun Watson thing, and whether you think he's washed or whatever, the bottom line is he's not going to be playing again, and they're going to keep paying him, and they're in cap hell because of it. So, you know, but they did. The good news for the Browns, they will have the number 2 overall pick. So in a pretty good position, to get maybe a quarterback or another player that can pump some life into their franchise. All right, let's move on. The Cincinnati Bengals beat the Pittsburgh Steelers 19-17. So the Bengals, after all said and done, a winning record, 9-8. The Steelers 10-7. I believe that's finished the season with 4 losses in a row. So Joe Burrow, 37-46, 277 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Khalil Herbert was the team's leading rusher with 20 carries for 69 yards, and Jamar Chase, 10 grabs, 96 yards and a touchdown. Russell Wilson, 17-31, 148 yards and a touchdown. Najee Harris, only 36 yards on 12 carries, but he did find the end zone. And Pat Freiermuth, 8 catches, 85 yards, and a touchdown. So the Bengals led 19-7 with 11:02 left. But the Steelers tried to rally. It fell short. And George Pickens, one of the stat line for him on this one that just was a big head scratcher, 1 catch, 0 yards, when he probably could have had, if he had a good game, could have reached 1,000 yards for the season. and that did not happen. Of course, we know that the Bengals will not be making the playoffs. They had their hopes up. They were going to need a lot of help. Um, on Sunday, they did get help from the Jets, but not the Chiefs. We'll talk about that later. All right, Sunday's games, we saw the Carolina Panthers beat the Atlanta Falcons in overtime, 44-38. So the Panthers finish at 5-12. Falcons, which had a chance at the division, they needed the Buccaneers to lose, which didn't happen anyway. They go to 8-9. So maybe that's a good thing if you're a Falcons fan because you wouldn't have made the playoffs anyway, and your draft pick will be a little better. So there's the silver lining. Okay, Bryce Young, 25 of 34, 251 yards, 3 touchdowns. Good for him. Starting to look like a real NFL quarterback. Miles Sanders, 17 carries, 66 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown. And Jalen Coker, 7 catches, 62 yards. Michael Penix Jr., 21 of 38, 312 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Bijan Robinson, 28 carries, 170 yards, 2 touchdowns, and Drake London, 10 catches, 187 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So a lot of offense in this game. The Falcons tied this one with 46 seconds left on a Bijan Robinson 4-yard touchdown run. But in overtime, Miles Sanders ended it with a goal line plunge for the win. So that's that for both those teams. All right, the Houston Texans beat the Tennessee Titans 23-14. So Houston finishes 10-7. Of course, they're the 4th seed in the playoffs. The Titans 3-14, number 1 overall pick in the draft. So congratulations, Titans fans. Davis Mills. He played most of the game, 12 of 22, 128 yards. C.J. Stroud did get a series, 6 of 6, 50 yards and a touchdown. Damian Pierce, 19 carries, 176 yards and a touchdown. And Robert Woods, 2 catches for 39 yards. Will Levis and Mason Rudolph combined their combined stats, 16 of 26, 245 yards and a touchdown. Tony Pollard, 22 carries, 62 yards, and Calvin Ridley, 3 grabs for 76 yards. So the Titans, they wore the Oilers uniforms. They love to kind of troll the Texans there, which is kind of funny. I mean, Houston really had nothing to do with that move, the Houston Texans, but whatever. I guess it's kind of fun that they do that. Then the Texans, they won with, mostly backups, and good for them. But maybe the Titans won in the end because they got the number 1 overall pick. All right, let's move on. The Philadelphia Eagles beat the New York Football Giants 22-13. Philly finishes 14-3. They're the 2 seed. Giants 3-14, number 3 overall pick in the draft. Tanner McKee started for Philadelphia in this one, 27 of 41, 269 yards and 2 touchdown passes. Will Shipley was the leading rusher, 32 yards on only 32 yards and 10 carries. And Jahan Dotson, the former Washington Commander, 7 catches for 94 yards. Drew Lock, 22 of 29, 138 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Tyrone Tracy Jr., 14 carries, 59 yards. And Malik Neighbors, 5 grabs, 64 yards and a touchdown. So there's no Saquon Barkley. We didn't get to see the record broken. So Eric Dickerson, still putting his chest out. He owns that record 40 years later. I mean, good for him. All right. Shame for us, though. We didn't get to see history. So the Philly backups get the win. Giants get the better draft pick. Everybody wins, right? Okay. Indianapolis Colts beat the Jacksonville Jaguars in overtime, 26-23. Colts finish 8-9. Jags 4-13. Joe Flacco, 23 of 40, 264 yards and a touchdown. Jonathan Taylor, 34 carries, 177 yards and 1 touchdown. And Josh Downs, 10 grabs for 94 yards. Mac Jones, 20 of 32, 225 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Tank Bigsby, 14 carries, 39 yards, 1 touchdown. And my man, Brian Thomas Jr., 7 catches, 103 yards. So good back and forth in this one. It came down to a Matt Gay game-winning field goal in overtime for the Colts. And, of course, the big news, Doug Peterson, out as the Jaguars head coach being fired. So we'll talk more about that in a bit. All right, the Washington Commanders beat the Dallas Cowboys 23-19. So the Commanders 12-5, 12-5. This team had not won more than 10 games in a regular season since the 1991 season when those Washington Redskins won the Super Bowl. So over 30 years ago. So congratulations. What a season. What a turnaround. The Cowboys finish at 7-10. Marcus Mariota played the majority of this game, right? Jaden Daniels started the game, and they said let's just kind of get through this game and not get hurt and try to win, and with Mariota and keep that 6th seed spot, and that's exactly what they did. And the offense really wasn't going when Daniels was in there for whatever reason, but Mariota gave it a spark. 15 of 18, 161 yards, 2 touchdown passes, and 5 carries for 56 yards and a touchdown. He was the team's leading rusher. Terry McLaurin, 8 catches, 62 yards, and a touchdown, which was the game winner. Trey Lance started for the Cowboys, 20 of 34, 244 yards. Rico Dowdle, 22 carries, 72 yards, and a touchdown, and Jalen Tolbert, 4 catches for 98 yards. So it's not that Trey Lance was horrible. He showed some good things. He was just awful in the red zone. That Dallas offense was terrible in the red zone, and that was the difference in the ball game. Like I said, the game-winning touchdown pass to Terry McLaurin with 3 seconds left, but it looks like Mike McCarthy is going to keep his job. We'll talk about that in a bit. All right, the Chicago Bears, the losing streak's over. They beat the Green Bay Packers 24-22. So the Bears 5-12 and the Packers 11-6. The Packers that 7th seed in the playoffs. I think this is the first time in 11 tries that the Bears, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what I heard. 11 tries since the Bears beat the Packers. So congratulations, Bear fans. I know it wasn't the season you hoped for, but at least that makes things a little less bitter heading into the offseason. So a lot of Packer backups played. So I'm not trying to spoil that for you Bears fans. Malik Willis, 10 of 13, 136 yards. Emmanuel Wilson, the 14 carries, 73 yards and a touchdown. And Malik Heath, 3 grabs for 53 yards. So the starters for the Packers getting a limited time. Caleb Williams, 21 of 29, 148 yards and a touchdown. DeAndre Swift, 20 carries, 65 yards and a touchdown. And DJ Moore, 9 grabs, 86 yards and a touchdown. So the Packers, like I said, it's mostly against the Packers backups. Bears finally beat the Packers. And this kind of had a wild ending with Brandon McManus kicking a 55-yarder with 54 seconds left for the go-ahead field goal. But the Bears weren't out of it just yet. They were able to drive the ball down and get in Cairo Santos' range, and he kicked a 51-yard game winner as time expired, which was a nice redemption considering what happened in Chicago like a month ago when it looked like the Bears were going to beat the Packers and the field goal was blocked. So good for you, Bears fans. All right. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers beat the New Orleans Saints 27-19. Bucks 10-7. Saints 5-12. Bucks, congratulations, back-to-back division champs, NFC South, headed to the playoffs. Baker Mayfield, 21 of 32, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Bucky Irving, 19 carries, 89 yards, 1 touchdown. Mike Evans, 9 grabs, 89 yards. Spencer Rattler, 26 of 42, 240 yards and a touchdown. And Juwan Johnson, 6 grabs, 80 yards. So the Saints led 13-3 with 6:14 left in the half. But then in the second half, the Bucks got things going, and yeah, they wrapped up the division. This team, back-to-back years too, they were 4-6, and I believe finished 10-7. So good for them. A lot of resilience by Todd Bowles and company. All right, the New England Patriots beat the Buffalo Bills 23-16. Patriots 4-13. Buffalo 13-4 in that 2 seed. So Mitchell Trubisky got the start for the Bills, 15-21, 101 yards and a touchdown. Ray Davis was the leading rusher, 15 carries, 64 yards, and Curtis Samuel, 7 grabs for 52 yards. Joe Milton III for the Patriots, 22 of 29, 241 yards and a touchdown. He also had a rushing touchdown. Antonio Gibson had 61 total yards, and Kayshon Boutte, 7 grabs, 117 yards and a touchdown. So Buffalo rest their starters. And New England was, had the number 1 overall pick last week. They win. They drop to 4. So I don't know how you feel about that, Patriots fans. I don't know if that Mr. Kraft is too happy about it because afterwards he fired Gerard Mayo. So Gerard Mayo, 1 and done as a head coach. We'll talk about that later. All right, those Los Angeles Chargers, those playoff-bound Los Angeles Chargers, they beat the Las Vegas Raiders 34-20. So Chargers, they finish the season 11-6. I believe they're the 5th seed. Raiders 4-13. Justin Herbert, 28 of 36, 346 yards, 2 touchdowns. J.K. Dobbins, 18 carries, 63 yards. And Quentin Johnson, 13 catches for 186 yards. Aiden O'Connell, 24 of 34, 214 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Jacoby Myers, 9 catches, 123 yards and a touchdown. And rookie sensation Brock Bowers, 4 catches, 50 yards and a touchdown. So story in this one, the Chargers were just able to outrush the Raiders 137 yards to Las Vegas's 39 yards. And then, of course, the big news, Antonio Pierce, head coach, and GM Tom Telesco, both fired. So we'll get into that in a bit. All right, the Arizona Cardinals beat the San Francisco 49ers 47-24. Cards finished 8-9. Niners 6-11. Ooh, who saw that at the beginning of the year? Kyler Murray 25 of 35, 242 yards and 4 touchdown passes. Tony Jones Jr. was the leading rusher for the Cards for 4 carries, 55 yards, and a touchdown. Trey McBride, 7 grabs, 65 yards, and a touchdown. And Marvin Harrison Jr., 5 catches, 63 yards, and a touchdown. Joshua Dobbs, the Pastronaut, right? He started for the 49ers, 29 of 43, 326 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Patrick Taylor, Dobbs also had a rushing TD. Patrick Taylor Jr. Was the leading rusher for the Niners, 17 carries, 109 yards, and Ricky Pearsall, 6 grabs, 69 yards, and a touchdown. So this game was 26-24 Arizona into the 4th quarter, but 21 unanswered points by the Cardinals, and both teams' seasons are over. Hey, Niners, you finished with the better draft pick. All right. The Denver Broncos beat the Kansas City Chiefs 38-0. Broncos 10-7. Congratulations, Broncos. You are the number 7 seed in the playoffs. It's been since the 2015 season since you've been to the playoffs, right? That Super Bowl season with Peyton Manning, where they beat the Carolina Panthers in Super Bowl. Great defense, Von Miller, right? Yep. You're back in the playoffs, finally. And the Chiefs, only their 2nd loss of the year, 15-2. Of course, they had nothing to play for. It was all backups. They were locked in to that 1 seed. So Bo Nix, 26 of 29, 321 yards, 4 touchdown passes. He also was a leading rusher with 7 carries for 47 yards. Cortland Sutton, 5 catches, 98 yards, and a touchdown. And Marvin Mims Jr., 5 catches, 51 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Carson Wentz, 10 of 17, 98 yards. And Nico Remigio, he had 2 carries for 48 yards or 2 catches for 48 yards. I don't even know these backups. Oh man, I don't even know my own stats, but there's not much to say here. I mean, it's a shame because this killed all the drama, right? The Chiefs just laying down in this game killed it for the Dolphins, killed it for the Bengals, right? And killed it for us fans pretty much. So, um, even though the Jets beat the Dolphins, maybe the Dolphins just had the win taken, not taking anything away from the Jets. We'll talk about that later. Had the win taken out of their sail, knowing what this score was. So, yeah, and people are going to say, "Oh, Carson Wentz, Carson Wentz." That's a narrative, all right. You're putting Carson Wentz in with a bunch of backups. It's This wasn't going to happen against a pretty good Denver team that had everything to play for. So, all right. All right, so let's see. The Seattle Seahawks beat the Los Angeles Rams 30-25. Both teams finished at 10-7, but of course, the Rams already had that division locked up. So, you know, this was kind of a pride game for the Seahawks. I think Geno Smith got some bonus money because he went 20 of 27, 223 yards and 4 touchdowns. Zach Charbonnet, 14 carries, 59 yards. Noah Fant, 5 catches, 63 yards and a touchdown. And DK Metcalf, 3 grabs, 53 yards and a touchdown. Jimmy Garoppolo started for the Rams in this one, 27 of 41, 334 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Ronnie Rivers, 12 carries, 48 yards. Jordan Whittington, 3 carries for 86 yards. So Rams backups, right, are in. Seattle wins, 10 plus wins. So good first season for Mike McDonald, I guess, right? But they unfortunately, uh, 10 wins was not good enough to get them into the playoffs. All right, the New York Football Jets beat the Miami Dolphins 32-20. So Jets finished 5-12. Miami 8-9. Aaron Rodgers 23 of 36, 274 yards, 4 touchdown passes, 1 pick. Breece Hall, 12 carries, 57 yards. Devontae Adams, 6 grabs, 88 yards and a touchdown, and Alan Lazard, 3 catches, 71 yards and a touchdown. So if this was Aaron Rodgers' last game, he was really, slinging it to the Packer guys, right? All right. Tyler Huntley started for Miami again, 25 of 41, 227 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Devon Achane, uh, 11 carries, 121 yards, and a touchdown. And Johnny Smith had 9 catches, 56 yards and a touchdown. So after a 6-0 Dolphins lead, it was all Jets. And was this Aaron Rodgers goodbye? It feels like it. It feels like it. What we've heard from, coming out of the Woody Johnson camp. Joe Namath says that they should run it back. I think it's the end. Who knows if Aaron Rodgers continues to play? It's a long off season, and I guess we'll have some time to kind of see where everything falls. If I had to predict, though, I think he's done with football. But that's just a prediction, and predictions are sure to be wrong a lot of the time. So we will see. All right. So, yep. Sunday Night Football. Dun, 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 dun. The Detroit Lions beat the Minnesota Vikings 31-9. So Lions 15-2, Vikings 14-3. Lions division winners, number 1 seed. Vikes, unfortunately, after an incredible season, 14-3, they think that would be enough for the division and maybe enough for that 1 seed. It wasn't. They are the top wild card 5th seed in the NFC. So Jared Goff, 27 of 33, 231 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Jahmyr Gibbs, a monster game, 23 carries, 139 yards, 3 touchdowns, 5 receptions, 31 yards and a touchdown. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, 6 catches, 77 yards. Sam Darnold for the Vikings, 18-41, 166 yards. Cam Akers, 6 carries, 65 yards. And Justin Jefferson, 3 grabs, 54 yards. This was all Lions, and you just saw some kind of uncharacteristic things from Minnesota. Sam Darnold missing some throws on some key downs. And, it could just be that, it's just one of those games for the Vikings. It's just unfortunate so much was on the line, and the Lions are a great football team, right? They are a juggernaut. So, that might just have something to do with it. But, does this mean the Vikings can't go on a playoff run? No, but remember what I said. This is key for Darnold, right? And I'm not hating on Sam Darnold. He's had an incredible season. He's probably going to be comeback player of the year, right? I was thinking Russell Wilson, but the way the Steelers finished the season, I think they're going to give it to uh, Sam Darnold, I guess. What did he come back from? I don't know. I mean, this is kind of like a coming out party, if anything. But um, this playoff game is huge for them, because they couldn't get it done in Detroit for all the marbles. But can they do something in the playoffs? And that's going to be huge for Darnold and the decisions this franchise makes going forward. All right, so we are going to tackle these playoff games. I am excited. I'm going to throw in a little history, between some of these teams. So we're going to have some fun, but let's jump into the news. All right, so Tyreek Hill made some headlines talking of kind of a little bit of sour grapes at the end of the season, not happy with the way the things went with the Dolphins, and he kind of hinted that, maybe it was time for him to move on. And then Micah Parsons is yapping about, Super Bowl next year on his podcast. So let me tackle one of these at a time. First off, with Tyreek Hill, okay, it's the end of the season. People are going to say things. People are emotional. It could mean nothing. And here we are in the media just trying to make a story out of it. Okay, I guess we have to talk about it a little bit, but it's not that big a deal. And an emotional guy after a disappointing season, right? Where, Miami was hoping to be playing this weekend and it didn't work out for them. First, they didn't win, and of course, they wouldn't have gotten the help they needed. So there's probably some frustration there. And then with Tua in and out of the lineup, that really cripples what those receivers like Tyreek Hill can do. As far as Micah Parsons goes, I really don't have a problem with him maybe trying to speak something into existence and try to motivate himself for next season. Whether you think the Super Bowl is, you know, attainable or unattainable for the Cowboys. For me, I think it's unattainable. I wish I was wrong, but that's just the reality of it. I don't have a problem with him thinking that way. It's just, broadcasting on this podcast. And Micah Parsons, he finished this season strong. Credit to him coming back from that injury. I mean, he was just an absolute dog. Kind of reminded you of that guy when he first came on the scene. Not saying he hasn't been a great player since, but you feel like there's been other things going on as far as his off the field ventures. He's a businessman. Good for him catching while he can. But his podcast is noisy. I even sometimes, instead of calling him Micah Parsons, I call him Micah Podcast. So I'd like to see him just kind of dial it back and, just work hard. And next year, just let your play do the talking. But maybe that's too much to ask. Okay. So there's a lot going on with coaches. Obviously, Doug Peterson fired. I told you, I kind of predicted that he was going to be fired, especially by the way the Jags started off. I think Doug Peterson, can bring a lot to a franchise, but only in the short term. We've seen it in Philadelphia. We've seen it in Jacksonville. And I guess they had seen enough, and they decided to let go of a Super Bowl winning head coach because, like me, they see it's just a short-term fix, not really a guy you bring in for the long haul. Gerard Mayo for the Patriots fired after one season. So the heir apparent to Bill Belichick, Belichick protege, it didn't work out. And one of the stories that leaked was after a New England loss to the Arizona Cardinals. I think it was several weeks ago. Instead of watching film, I don't know if this was on the plane ride back or in the office or back in New England, he's playing cards. Now I don't know if that's just a way for the organization to save face or if that was what was really going on. But I had kind of mentioned some of the things he was saying in his presser, and it was just a little. He wasn't really looking at himself in the mirror. He was calling out the players, and I get that, but he just didn't have the credibility to do that yet. And I think maybe that was his downfall. I also think, Kraft, seeing the big picture, thinking maybe they could bring somebody else in uh, that would be a better fit for the long haul. And, you know, unfortunately for Gerard Mayo, probably got this job before he was ready, and that's what Robert Kraft said. But anyway, Antonio Pierce, he took over last year as the interim head coach for the Raiders after Josh McDaniels was fired midseason. He got a full season this year, and that was all he was going to get. He and GM Tom Telesco, after one season, out the door. A lot of this is saying this is Tom Brady's influence. Remember, Tom Brady is a minority partner in the Raiders organization. He wanted to be that for a while, right? Have ownership stake in the Raiders. The problem was he's also the lead broadcast, on the lead broadcast team for Fox. So it took a while for the league to work that out to make sure there was no conflict of interest. So Brady will, it sounds like is going to have some say in the way this organization is run, which might be a good thing because obviously Mark Davis can't figure it out. So good for him to defer to somebody else. Whether it works or not, we will see. But I'm interested. Brady's got a lot of, been around football. He played football, over 20 years as starting quarterback in the league. He's played in a lot of Super Bowls. He knows a lot of people, got a lot of friends. I'll be interested, and now he's in broadcasting. I'll be interested to see who he could potentially bring in to try to turn this team around. All right. Other news: Brian Daboll, the head coach for the Giants, and GM Joe Shane are going to return. A lot of people thought those guys were out, especially Joe Shane after the letting Saquon Barkley go and the humiliation of that being on the offseason Hard Knocks. No, the Mara is bringing them back. So I guess they're going to give them another run. And really, I would imagine it have to be more than 1 year because you don't have a starting quarterback. So you're going to need to, bring in a young guy and develop him. So I think they might be safe for a while. You know, is the Mariners patient? Are they gonna be patient to a fault on this one again? I don't know, Giants fans. I know it's been a tough decade and change for you. All right, Mike McCarthy is likely returning to Dallas after all the chatter because the Bears were interested in interviewing McCarthy. The Cowboys blocked it, and I'm thinking, is this Jerry Jones just playing a game? But it looks like, from what I'm hearing, that they're both Jones and McCarthy are in contract talks. So we'll see if they can come away with a new contract for Mike McCarthy. Um, so me, a Cowboy fan, how do I feel about this? Well, I don't dislike Mike McCarthy. I think he brings a lot of good things to the table. His in-game management is concerning, and some of the decisions. But I think the team plays hard for him. I don't doubt that at all. And he's just got a really good track record. Even look what he's done with backup quarterbacks throughout his career. I mean, look at Cooper Rush for the Cowboys and how much success. I mean, I was a guy that was struggling to make a team. And I mean, credit to Cooper Rush, of course, but look, um, this guy has a winning record as a starter under Mike McCarthy. So, you know, uh, credit to him there. And you saw that from time to time during his years in Green Bay. So, um, you're bringing Dak back, CD back, Micah, the core of your team. Are they ready to start with a new head coach, especially when you have an owner that, you know, if he lets go McCarthy, who is he going to hire, right? It's got to be a Jerry guy. So, yeah, it's probably, could they go out and get a better coach? Absolutely. And I would love that. But I know who the owner is. And, you know, we could do a lot worse than Mike McCarthy. We'll just leave it at that. All right. The Titans fired their GM, Ran Carthon. So they're going to bring in somebody new with this number one overall pick and, you know, figure out what they do from there, I guess. Uh, so here are the open jobs right now for head coaches in the NFL. There's six of them: the Chicago Bears, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Las Vegas Raiders, New England Patriots, New Orleans Saints, and New York Football Jets. So, which one of those is the most attractive? Well, you got some pieces to work with. All right. Okay. So the Bears, Caleb Williams. All right. I like Caleb Williams. You know, I like Caleb Williams. He's doing some good things. So, and the Bears have a pretty good roster. Um, Obviously, there's been some kind of something going on with that ownership, right? Where they can't get it right. Um, but I think it's a traditional organization. You have a good young quarterback and you have a good core around you, and you'll have some draft. You know, you have the 10th overall pick this year, so you get another good player. Maybe this thing could take off. All right, Jacksonville. I still like Trevor Lawrence. Okay, um, he's just too good of an athlete, and maybe you bring in somebody, another offensive mind that can kind of reinvent this Jaguars team. They got a stud receiver in Brian Thomas Jr. I'm really excited what that kid's career can be. So that is kind of attractive to me there. Um, and I like Shad Khan as an owner. I do. I think he wants to win. He'll take chances. He'll roll the dice. So I think that'd be an attractive job. And I'm going to say the Patriots job because of Drake May, right? Now they need a lot of pieces, but obviously there's a lot of tradition there. Um, Bob Kraft, I don't, great owner in this league for a long time. Is he still? I don't know. Um, but having that franchise quarterback, I think is key. And I mean, what's going on with Miami? What's going on with the Jets? We know the Bills are for real, but how much longer? Maybe the Patriots can really, get back into this being a contender for the AFC East again. All right. As far as the other jobs, you know, the Raiders have never been able to get it right. The Jets have never been able to get it right. And I just don't really know what direction the Saints are going. So I think the first three I mentioned are really appealing. Um, you know, if I'm going in for a job with the other three, I need to see what's the real change and organizational plan going forward, and how can I implement what I am I going to be able to implement what I want to do to make this team successful. So again, no particular order: Chicago, Jacksonville, New England. I'm much more attracted to those as opposed to Las Vegas, New Orleans, and the New York Jets. All right, so who are the hot head coach candidates? I think Mike Vrabel is at the top of the list. Uh, the former Tennessee Titans head coach. This guy is total pro, total football coach. We remember what kind of player he was. So would he want to go coach for Tom Brady? Would he want to go back to New England? I think he's going to have the pick of the litter. Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. Obviously, he was a hot candidate last year. It looked like he was going to take the Washington job, opted to stay in Detroit. Um, I think but he's going to be picky. He said that too, and I think he's going to be able to be picky. And how about Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator for the Lions? I mean, this guy's squeezing blood out of a stone. I imagine he's got to get a head coaching job. With all those injuries and him, the defense was a little shaky at the beginning of the year. When he's healthy, he fixed it. They have injuries, and he's fixing it again. So, Aaron Glenn's just done one hell of a job. And then, of course, Cliff Kingsbury maybe getting another opportunity as a head coach. Did some good things in Arizona, but in the end, it didn't work out. But we see what he's done with Washington and that offense, Jaden Daniels. So, He's definitely going to get some looks. Maybe he's the guy in Chicago, right? Because he does have some ties to Caleb Williams from USC. All right, who are some of the kind of the second tier candidates? Well, Pete Carroll's in the mix, believe it or not. Pete Carroll in his 70s, but he's a young guy, a young 70s guy, right? And he still wants to coach. So there's always that possibility. Brian Flores, the former Miami Dolphins head coach, um, there's a where's he defensive coordinator now? Minnesota. Um, so maybe an opportunity for him. Maybe he goes back to New England, or maybe he, uh, you know, Brady familiar with him. Maybe he goes to the Raiders. Todd Monken, the Ravens offensive coordinator. Uh, so that's a possibility. Remember, he was with the Georgia Bulldogs, college football, comes to the NFL, and hey, does a great job with that offense. And now maybe he's going to become a head coach. And then uh, Kellen Moore, right? The Philadelphia Eagles offensive coordinator, obviously all those years with the Dallas Cowboys as quarterback coach, then offensive coordinator. And then, he's kind of ran out of Dallas, took a job with the Chargers on Brandon Staley's staff. And that whole season was a disaster, but he goes to Philadelphia with those pieces, gets that thing going. And yeah, now he's back in the mix for a head coaching gig. So we'll keep an eye there. Let's look at this draft order. We got the number one overall pick, the Tennessee Titans, followed by the Cleveland Browns at number 2, Giants at number 3, New England Patriots at 4, Jacksonville Jaguars at 5, Las Vegas Raiders at 6, New York Football Jets at 7, Carolina Panthers at 8, New Orleans Saints at 9, Chicago Bears at 10, 11 is the San Francisco 49ers, Dallas Cowboys at 12, Miami Dolphins at 13, Indianapolis Colts at 14, Atlanta Falcons at 18, Arizona Cardinals at 16, the Cincinnati Bengals at 17, and the Seattle Seahawks at 18. Of course, as the playoffs, go on and teams are eliminated, we'll kind of see where the rest of the draft order falls. But those are the 18 teams that didn't make the playoffs, and that's the order that they're in. So the poor Bengals, because they were fighting to get into the playoffs, and then in the end, it cost you, a draft spot. But you can't just, teams just the whole league can't tank. So, good for being competitive. All right, so what direction do the Titans go? Do they go quarterback? Do they trade? Do they like Travis Hunter? A lot to be decided, before, um, you know, we see who's taking who, right? We're a long way away. Combine, who's committing to the draft, all that stuff. So there'll be plenty of time to talk about that. But I mean, the main reason we're here is to talk about Super Wild Card Weekend and these playoff games. So we're going to start Saturday, where we have the 5th seed Los Angeles Chargers 11-6 at the number 4 seed Houston Texans 10-7. So this game kicks off at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can watch on CBS or stream on Paramount Plus. Ian Eagle and Charles Davis with the call. The Chargers are a 3-point favorite on the road, and the over-under on this one is 42.5 points. So I really think the Chargers have a lot of momentum going in here, and the Texans have just been really up and down, right? Now with the tank, Nico Collins in and out of the lineup. He's back now. Tank Dell obviously done, and it's kind of been a little bit of a sophomore slump for C.J. Stroud. But credit to the Texans, 10 wins, back-to-back division champs. Because you got to remember where this franchise was, and I know that their division, stinks, right? The Colts were wildly inconsistent, and the Jaguars and Titans obviously bottom feeders, right? Drafting in the top 5. So, but they got it done. You got to give credit where credit is due. But I like the Chargers here. I like, look at the numbers. Look at Herbert is playing really sharp lately. They got J.K. Dobbins back. they got a rookie stud, Lad McConkey. Quentin Johnson had a huge game last week. And in his Harbaugh, I just think his playoff debut, he's going to make a little bit of a splash. Um, I just everything here to me is saying Chargers, which is weird because traditionally the Chargers are just huge chokers in playoffs, but Harbaugh is not. Jim Harbaugh is not a choker. His teams don't choke. So I just really like the Chargers here, and I think the Texans are just going to be out of steam, but we shall see because they did rest guys pretty much in that last game, right? Their starters didn't play much, and the Chargers starters did. So is that a factor? Maybe that could work. Sometimes what's better, rest. Does rest create rust? Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. Maybe we'll find out Saturday afternoon. All right. The other game on Saturday, the 6th seed Pittsburgh Steelers at 10-7 are taking on the Baltimore Ravens, the 3 seed, who are 12-5. This game kicks off at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and can be streamed on Prime Video. So I know there's going to be a lot of complaints there. Luckily, I've always been an Amazon, I've been an Amazon Prime member for probably like a decade now. So no issue for me to watch the game. And hopefully the bars aren't just, cheap jerks and they stream this game because it's really not that much for a Prime subscription. I mean, shoot, just do the free trial. But anyway, enough of that. So Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit, they'll be on the Thursday Night Football crew. They'll be on the call. And the Ravens are opening up as, according to Fox Bet, a 9.5-point favorite. And I think this has to do, and the over/under is only 43.5. I think this has to do with the Steelers' offense just this last month, just sputtering, right? But maybe Arthur Smith is able to kind of rally the troops and dial some things up to get something going. Now, these teams, obviously, they're division opponents. They played twice this year. Week 11, the Steelers beat the Ravens 18-16, but in Week 16, Baltimore got revenge 34-17, and they have a great playoff history, right? The Steelers lead the playoff series 3-1. So in 2001, the Steelers beat the Ravens. So the Ravens would have been the defending Super Bowl champs then, but the Steelers beat them 27-10 in 2008. Both these teams met in the AFC championships. This was only Mike Tomlin's second year and John Harbaugh's first year. Remember, Joe Flacco was a rookie, and the Ravens made some noise in the playoffs, right? Playoff Flacco, that's where it began. And but the Steelers ended up winning the AFC Championship game to advance to the Super Bowl, which they would go on to win. They won that game 20. They won the AFC Championship game against the Ravens that year, 23-14. 2010, the divisional playoffs, the Steelers beat the Ravens 31-24, and the Steelers did go to the Super Bowl that year, lost to the Packers. But in 2014, Baltimore finally avenged their playoff losses to the Steelers and won 30-17. So this is a fifth. I know the Ravens have only been around since 1996, so this is the fifth time since that's pretty incredible too for division opponents that they are meeting the playoffs. It just says a lot about these two franchises, and this is why this is the best modern day rivalry in pro sports. It really is. A Ravens and Steelers, there's nothing like it. I love the rivalry that they have. It's great. Both teams with the black, traditionally, really tough defenses. Even though Baltimore's isn't that great this year, they can still knock you around. Love everything about this rivalry. The fans get into it. It's just fun, and I'm probably the most excited about this game than any other game this weekend, just because of that. All right, well, let's look. Well, and what do I think about the game? Again, like I said, Arthur Smith has got to dial something up, right? They got to get that offense going. because the Ravens are going full steam ahead. Can they get some turnovers, right? Can they give Russell Wilson and company short field, right? And maybe have somehow make the Raven team one dimensional, which is really hard to do. But can they get ahead, right? Um, can they get some turnovers? Can they protect the football? I mean, I think that's what's going to have to happen. All right. And then Sunday, we start at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. The number 7 seed Denver Broncos. Broncos back in the playoffs, 10-7 at the 2 seed Buffalo Bills, 13-4. This game can be seen on CBS or streamed on Paramount Plus. Jim Nantz and Tony Romo with the call. Buffalo, 8.5 point favorite, over under 47.5. Not much playoff history between the two teams other than the 1991 AFC Championship, on which the Buffalo Bills defeated John Elway's Denver Broncos 10-7, and it came down to a Scott Norwood field goal. A lot of people don't realize this, that the guy that missed the field goal that would have won the Bills the Super Bowl the previous year. The next year, he kicked them into the Super Bowl and never gets talked about, though, right? Because the Buffalo Bills never won a Super Bowl. But that's a nice little history footnote here. Okay, can Denver go into Buffalo and upset the Bills? I don't think they will, but I think they can, right? I mean, this Bo Nix kid, he's playing out of his mind, right? I mean, what did the Broncos have to lose? And that's kind of what makes them dangerous. They're a dangerous football team. They got some good football players, right? They got a Cortland Sutton. They got a Marvin Mims Jr. and a young rookie quarterback that just he and Sean Payton, go together like peanut butter and jelly. Um, Buffalo rested. Hopefully, Josh Allen is not going to do too much, right? That might be where, you know, you need some guys stepping up, making plays. He's got to be able to spread the ball around to a bunch of different people. James Cook's got to have a good game. You don't want him doing too much, right? If he does too much, it can get a little sloppy, and that might give Denver opportunities to get back in the game. But I just think Buffalo, it feels like they could really make a run, right? We probably think Josh Allen's going to end up the MVP, and veteran team. They've been there before. The Broncos are happy to be in the playoffs. So I do like the Bills here, but they can't get cute. They can't get cute, or they will be going home. All right. Let's go to 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. You have the 7 seed Green Bay Packers, 11-6, taking on the 2 seed Philadelphia Eagles, 14-3. Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady with the call. The Eagles are a 5.5 point favorite at home, over under 45.5 points. So these teams met in week 1. Remember, it was it was on, I think it was on Peacock, and they played in Brazil. How wild was that? Um, and the Eagles ended up winning a crazy football game, 34-29. I don't know, when you go back to week one games don't mean squat to me. Now they can come back to haunt you, right? Because, oh, we lost to that team. It's a head-to-head. We finished with the same record, and they have the home playoff game, and we don't, right? So it's not to say it doesn't matter, but can't tell a lot about a team in week 1. But we saw that these teams both of them could be very explosive, and we saw that throughout the year. You'd give the upper hand to Philadelphia. Good news for them, they do have Jalen Hurts has cleared concussion protocol, so he will start. They're well rested. Will they be rusty? I don't know. We'll see. The Packers, they have a pretty good defense. They have some playmakers. If Jordan Love can take care of the football, and if they can get, if they can get their own running game going with Joshua Jacobs, what they have been able to do this year, then there's a chance for them to go into Philly and win this game. That we got Matt LaFleur. This is a really talented football team. So I like the way they match up with the Eagles. I just give the Eagles being at home, uh, you know, having their veterans, their playmakers. you know how I feel about Nick Sirianni, but I like their coordinators, Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio, because we've seen that Philly defense step up. And, you know, a Philly crowd can be tough. So can the Green Bay Packers take the crowd out of the game? Um, you know, it is possible because, you know, if the Eagles come out the gate rusty and the Packers are, you know, explosive. We saw what they did last year in Dallas. I don't think they'll be able to do it like that. Um, but Jordan Love in his two playoff games, pretty remarkable, right? And you know, almost pulled off the upset in the divisional round last year in San Francisco. Um, so I think the Packers have a pretty good shot, even more than a puncher's chance. I just give the edge to the Eagles. Some interesting playoff history between these two teams. I don't have all the meetings, but two stuck out to me. The 1960 NFL Championship game, right? I think this was Lombardi's last playoff loss or only playoff loss when the Eagles beat the Green Bay Packers in the 1960 NFL Championship game. And remember, the Eagles did not win another NFL championship until they won the Super Bowl in the 2017 season. So, a cool little history note there. And then that 2010 season playoff game, remember the Eagles with the resurgence of Michael Vick. Andy Reid was a coach at the Eagles at the time. And, you know, he brought Michael Vick back to life. And I believe there was a chance they were playing the Packers in Philadelphia. Remember, the Packers were the 6th seed, Mike McCarthy coaching the Packers at the time. And the Packers were almost eliminated. I think the Eagles had a shot at the end to make it, you know, if they could have finished a drive, they would have scored a go-ahead touchdown. They weren't able to do it. Packers held on for the win, and then they go on a run and win the Super Bowl that year. So anyway, you know, I think this is a like I said, both teams match up very well against each other, and I think it'll be a close game, kind of like it was in Brazil, you know, in Week 1. All right, the Washington Commanders are taking on the 6th seed, 12-5, are taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the 3 seed, 10-7, 8 p.m. On NBC or stream on Peacock. So Sunday Night Football crew, dun 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 dun, dun. Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth with the call. The Buccaneers are at home, 3-point favorite. So usually get 3 points at home. So it's almost kind of like almost a pick 'em. Over under is 50.5 on this one. So again, these teams met in Week 1, and the Buccaneers won 37-20, and a lot of people were saying, okay, Jaden Daniels might take him a little more time than we thought. Remember, he had some turnovers, and people thought, okay, it's going to be another one of those years for Washington, and really they just took off after that. So again, you can't tell a lot about these Week 1 matchups, right? Everyone's just kind of getting back in the mix of things. You know, the Buccaneers, uh, since they were 4-6, have gone 6-1. Baker Mayfield's had a hell of a season. I love rooting for this guy. Couldn't stand him when he was in Cleveland. He was immature. Um, but you know, he got humbled, he grew up, and he found a way to balance that chip on his shoulder and be a leader for his team. So I mean, hats off to this guy. He's fun to root for now. I mean, and the Buccaneers, you know, basically just kind of, you know, gave him yeah, we'll give you a 1-year shot, and he's made the most of it. Now they have a franchise quarterback. It's awesome. I love watching Mike Evans. Mike Evans, Hall of Famer. You know, we don't mention him enough with the great receivers. He's right there. I mean, look at the play, the stats, the plays. It's all there. It's a hell of a resume. He's going to end up in Canton. I love this rookie running back, Bucky Irving. And then you go to the other side, you got a gamer, Jaden Daniels, right? Okay, he didn't look that great last week in Dallas. He's going to be up for this playoff game. That's who he is, right? He's that kind of guy. So I'm really excited to see what he does in his playoff debut. Who can step up for the Commanders? We know Terry McLaurin. Is there anyone else that's going to step up and make a play so this team can advance? I do give the Buccaneers the edge here. Uh, they there's a lot of guys still on that Buccaneers team from that Super Bowl team. Um, Baker Mayfield won a playoff game. He's won a couple playoff games in his career. Remember, he won one with the Browns. All right, how often does that happen? Literally every once in a blue moon. So, and he won one last year against the defending NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles. So, and then played a hard playoff game in Detroit. So Baker Mayfield's going to be up for it too. I think we could have a really good quarterback duel here. Um, I'll, I may give Tampa a little edge on defense too. Um, Washington a little spotty here. They do some good things, and then they're kind of like, but I might give Tampa a little bit of edge here on defense. Yeah, I am just slightly liking the Bucks, but Jaden Daniels scares me, and he, I don't know if he's going to lose. I like what Baker's doing, I like what the Bucks are doing, but I also have a hard time seeing Jaden Daniels lose his playoff debut. So, again, really looking forward to this matchup. All right, Monday game. Dun, 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 dun. The fifth seed Minnesota Vikings, 14-3, taking on the 4 seed Los Angeles Rams at 10-7. Now, this game will be at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can ESPN, ABC, or stream it on ESPN Plus. Now, it'll be played in Glendale, Arizona, State Farm Stadium, where the Arizona Cardinals played. It has been moved from SoFi to there out in Arizona because of the wildfires out in Southern California. So, again, our thoughts with everybody there. I know people are arguing, they're getting political with it. You know what? That stuff will sort itself out later. Show some empathy here. People are losing, their homes, and it's not safe there. So anyway, I won't get into that. Joe Buck and Troy Aikman with the call. Minnesota Vikings 2.5 point favorite. Over under is 48 points. So in week 8, the Minnesota Vikings were coming off a loss, their first loss from the Detroit Lions, and they played the Rams and they lost that game 30-20 on Thursday Night Football. I know there was I think a controversial missed face mask that was later, it was a safety or something, I can't remember, that maybe hindered the Vikings' chances of winning, but I think you still felt pretty good that the Rams were going to win that game. Anyway, Minnesota would have had to make a really nice drive, which, Kevin O'Connell's teams are capable of doing. But anyway, I would like to think that the Vikings rebound from that Detroit loss last week and get a win and show that, yeah, we are a legit 14 win team that can, do some damage in the playoffs. I think they're capable of it. It's, you're going up against McVay, Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and a guy, and so those people have obviously Super Bowl experience, but you also have a guy in Puka Nacua who is really dangerous, right? You can take over a game. We talk about these Viking receivers, and they're awesome, aren't they? Jefferson and Addison, but Puka Nacua, he's a real player. He's a real force in this league. So, yeah, I'm leaning Vikings, but Sam Darnold, are you that guy that can win that big, a clutch game, a game you need to win? It didn't happen last week, and that happens. And Detroit's a good team, a really good team, a juggernaut. This Rams team is beatable, and I know they rested guys. So again, what's going to happen? Is it rest versus rust? We'll see which prevails. But I do. I still. I'm going to give the edge to the Vikings. I really like Kevin O'Connell. I like a lot of things about this team, and the Rams. I would have liked to seen just a little bit more out of them this year, but to feel better that they are a team that can do something in these playoffs, because I really don't think they are. Um, Even though they have some of those ingredients to go on a run, it just doesn't always translate, right? There's a little too much inconsistency for me. Um, Playoff history with these teams. So in 1977, the in the regular season, the Rams just clobbered the Vikings. And you remember the Minnesota Vikings in the 70s were a real force. They didn't win the Super Bowl. They went uh, well, they went to one in the late 60s and three in the 70s. Uh, yeah, they were a real. Actually, you know what? That one Super Bowl was the 1969 season, but it was played in 1970. So you want to say four in the 70s, fine. But anyway, they were clobbered against the Rams at the Los Angeles Coliseum in 1977 in the regular season. But then there was a game they played in the playoffs, and the field was just pure mud. I mean, YouTube this thing. I mean, the Vikings weren't all white, and you couldn't even tell because all the players were covered in mud, and all the Rams players were covered in mud. Created some confusion. And I believe the Vikings won that game like a 14-7 or something. You know, Minnesota was just so tough and resilient back then. Coached by Bud Grant, just classic. You loved. That's what makes football great. You know, the history and seeing things like that. Um, so that that's just one of those games when you look at the history, because these were two teams in the 70s, that were perennial playoff teams every year that were in the Super Bowl conversation every year, and that game definitely, I'm sure, created for a lot of memories for those that witnessed it in real time. And then, of course, with me, you go back to 1999, the greatest show on turf, right? Where they were the St. Louis Rams then. The Kurt Warner, you know, coming in that year for the injured Trent Green, and they go on that magical run. This is their first game in the playoffs. Jeff George has actually started for the Vikings. He replaced Randall Cunningham. He kind of got their season back on track, and they got into the playoffs. I believe they won their wild card round game against the Cowboys, and then they went to St. Louis. The Rams had home field. The Vikings actually had the lead at the half, but the Rams, did their thing, and that offense exploded in the second. And of course, they went on a run to win the Super Bowl. So those games stick out there. Kentucky football history forever. But I am looking forward to watching these playoff games and coming back here next week and talking about them. Everybody stay safe out there and enjoy these games.